The Ashes are done and the England side is probably trying to convince Emirates other airlines are available to land them at an obscure private airfield in Middle England to help them avoid the scrum that's to meet them at London's Heathrow Airport. They're likely to face as many hard questions about what they did off the pitch as they did on it, but luckily the interrogation that Jonesy will have on today's show is more Marnus than Mitchell, more Jackson Johnson. Welcome to our end of series Q&A show. Jonesy, Ashes are done. Sleep patterns are reasonably back to normal again. I'm pleased to say, but we thought we'd do this Q&A. We had, like we said a few times, we've had a number of questions and statements and some interesting comments, which I've basically ignored the majority of. But I pulled out the best ones for you so we can talk through. There's obviously a lot around the Ashes, but some other stuff in there as well. So why don't we crack on? But I must say, before we start, I've written a book, self-published on Amazon. You can buy it there. But let's remember what you think the best question is at the end of this, and I'll get in touch with whoever you think that is, and I'll wang a signed copy off to them. They'll be most chuffed. Late Christmas present. Right, let's start.
You said that like you've written it post-Ashes, Sanjay. So it's a remarkably quick turnaround, but I'm sure it's a high-quality book, and I'm still waiting for mine in the post.
Yeah, well, I did say to you about, and you said you were going to buy one for your holiday last year. I looked on all the list of everyone has bought one, and G.O. Jones wasn't on there. But I'm about to publish a second one, so let's start pushing this one out as well. So let's start with Gary West. Gary suggests that Stokes' toxic culture cost the Ashes. I mean, look, a lot has come out about the tour, drinking, casinos, lack of fitness. I mean, the Daily Telegraph's had a field day on this. David also says that McCullum's the problem, and we'll talk about that a bit more when we come to coaches. He has trained an excuse culture and a sense of entitlement into the players. Now, I made my feelings on the last show very clear about McCullum. But do you think the culture on that tour has been toxic?
I think it's hard to label it directly at Stokes and put it all on his shoulders for a start. That's probably a bit harsh. There has been a lot said about it, and it's been scrutinized like you wouldn't believe because it hasn't worked. But I think the intentions of the culture that Stokes, McCullum, and Rob Key must have been involved as well. I think the intentions of what they've tried to do are on the right lines, but the players as well have probably taken it too far with what they've been permitted to do. So, there's been a lot sort of written about it, even right back a few years ago when, as long as you're there by 10:50, that's okay with us. Just be prepared. And essentially that's what they've tried to do. They've tried to give the players some freedom, but ultimately say you have to be prepared. You have to perform, you have to be prepared. And that's what they haven't done. They've taken liberties, and that's the one thing in a culture that you can't have. And it's then who is pulling them into line. And that's my feeling a bit, is maybe Stokes and I think he was a bit frazzled by the end of the tour because it looked like he was the one doing all that pulling into line, and the players weren't really listening to him. And so as a captain, he got a bit sort of fed up with it, and especially with all the scrutiny that was there. So there's a level of blame and shouldering that has to go across multiple people. Toxic, I'm not sure toxic is the word. I think it's misguided with how it's rolled out. I like the way, as a player, to be given a little bit of freedom. And what they've also done is they've tried to give players some control and some confidence, because English cricket has been littered with, throughout the years, of being notoriety of not giving players confidence. So they've drawn from all that. But I won't say it's toxic. I'll just say it's misguided and it needs tweaking.
I mean, what they did was give a bunch of adults the ability to make their own decision at a time that they're playing cricket for their country in a sensible fashion. But clearly that wasn't enough. And now you see there's talk of a curfew being put into place for the Sri Lanka tour and maybe the Cricket World Cup. I mean, they're not school children. I mean, if they can't, okay, let's do this. If somebody has managed to reach the heights of representing their country, and then they misbehave in the way that these bunch of lads have, should they be stripped of that right?
Yeah, well, interestingly, curfew was one of the things that McCullum and Stokes as how got rid of, because before they came on board, there was a midnight curfew in place. And so that was one of the, so they got rid of that. So it's interesting if they're bringing that back in, and that comes back to who's making that decision. Has that come from higher? And that'll ultimately will be what's making decisions as to who goes on. Because if all of a sudden this group has to be given curfews, and you've got a captain and a coach who don't believe in curfews, something's got to give there. So it's those are the sort of little bits of tweaking that need to happen. But these guys playing shouldn't need curfews. You should have the level of responsibility playing for your country. That you're not staying out beyond silly o'clock the night before you played. Listen, there's times and there's place to do that on a tour. The tours that I went on, there's times when you can let your hair down. But the leading up to a test match or one day international, during it, they were complete no-go zones. And it seems that those no-go zones have become blurred. How much other stuff's been covered up? That's what we don't know as well.
Our friend Kamala, on the same sort of lines. Actually, before we get to that, I want to know if the headmaster at your school knows that you do a podcast during school hours.
Oh, yeah, well, I got rumbled.
Now.
Yeah, I got a lot of strange looks, and the students, when that last one where the fire alarm went off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was sitting under the tree. The amount of students that came up to me and said, "Sir, why were you on a FaceTime?" And I said, "I wasn't on a FaceTime. I was doing my podcast." It's been over 100,000 views. Thank you very much. So, so all that sort of So, I've been rumbled. I haven't had a tap on the shoulder or an email to say, "Can you come and see us?" So, so far so good.
Nearly 500,000 views, by the way, not 100,000. So there you go. I need to keep updating you with the figures. So Kamala also asked, actually going back to what we were talking about, 06, 07. He said, it's a very blunt question. What went wrong in 06, 07? Let's link it back to this tour. Can you see any similarities between the behaviour, if you like, of that tour and this tour?
No, not really. I know.
Okay.
People are going to potentially leak about Freddie, because Freddie's spoken out across about that tour and stuff. But no, not like that at all. What there was in 06 and 07, what we suffered from was a disjointed side. And I'm not talking about individually. I'm just saying from 05, the heights of that and the successes, we had a broken up team. And so we had new players that come in, and we just didn't gel. We also had some Marcus Roscovic went home during that series. Ashley Giles also, had some personal issues in that one. So that was more what upset that tour is the makeup of what went on with that team. It wasn't the fact of we had the exact, like this one. We didn't have the team that they've been setting up to have for a number of years, and then issues with preparation. We prepared well. We had, I remember playing warm up matches at Sydney. We played the Prime Minister's 11, so we were well prepared. It just it just didn't go right for us.
And I don't know if you know this or heard this, but Kamala says that Fred played a card that said that the team never supported him. Was that? Did you ever hear that? And was that evident at the time when you were in and around that squad?
No, not that I was very close with Fred, and I think there was just quite a bit going on with individuals on that trip, and so Fred was chosen that leader, and so that was more for if I think personally, there was a lot going on for me personally in terms of I didn't know if I was playing. I hadn't played the last Test match in the home summer series, and then I was sort of told early on in that tour that I would be playing that first Test match. So there was quite a bit around that. Obviously, Marcus had his had his personal issues there, and so I could sort of see why Fred maybe would say that. But I think it's more the fact that a lot of us had some issues which we were probably trying to deal with ourselves a lot, which probably could well have come across. And if that's the case, it's a real shame because we absolutely felt that he was the right leader, and we wanted to give him everything, but it just didn't work.
Back to this Ashes. Sean Cunningham asks, after Stokes' outburst in Adelaide, where that was the weak men in his changing room outburst. I think it was after Adelaide. He says, how can Stokes be angry with anyone? They were all encouraged to play this way. And Pixie 2070 on YouTube supports that by saying, and now some of these players are going to be hung out to dry for doing exactly what they've been programmed, which I think is an interesting word. Why do you think the more experienced players didn't sort of say, right, no, we're going to change the way that we play, sod Bazball in this way, we're going to play proper cricket, because otherwise we're going to A, look fools, and or B, our careers are finished.
Yeah, well, it's interesting who they're thinking of as those players, because a number of them, I think, did play the way that they did for a bit. So you think Zach Crawley? I don't think
60 tests.
I don't think he's drastically changed the way he's played from Test 1 to now. He's old. Since early days, we've been. He's such a good-looking batsman. Alistair Cook has said he's the best batsman to average 30 he's ever seen. So he's played that way. Driving on the up, getting out LBW and stuff like that. So he was the same. I didn't see Duckett trying a different method. Duckett's played the way since he's come into it. Ollie played his traditional way. Joe Root has learnt. Joe Root, arguably the other way, had tried Bazball methods, reverse scooping first balls of the day and stuff like that. So he has tried to go along this attacking and no fear, take it to it, and realise, hang on a minute, I need to be selective when I'm doing it. There's probably the two that they're thinking there who are still, well, they're not new to Test cricket, is Brook and Smith, isn't it? They're the ones that people are remembering and sort of people are really angry with about their methods of play.
I think the bowlers as well. I mean, so Wood didn't play. He played one Test. Jofra bowled well. Tongue had to come in and show people how to bowl. And I haven't seen enough of Bryden Cast bowling in county cricket to sort of say, well, that's how he bowls anyway. But was he, for example, given the license to just bowl fast and wayward with a hope that someone nicks off and gets caught down at third man, for example? But he, for one, didn't change the way that he bowled throughout that series.
And I sort of argue that he couldn't. We were seeing. I don't think he was trying to be as wayward as he. I think it's just it could be his style. And you come back to county cricket. There's a lot of these guys who've been picked without the backing of years of county cricket. Really, you're going to think Bryden Cast spent quite a bit of time out of county cricket. He had to have that enforced spell on the sidelines. And so I think what you got was wholehearted bowler who isn't consistent, but he picked up wickets, 22 wickets. But his issue is how many runs he went for. And so I don't think that he was charged with trying to spray it around without any care and just to get us wickets. I think he was trying to, but it just, again, whether his rhythm or it's just his, but I think it's probably his natural style of bowling is that he hasn't got that high level of consistency to his bowling.
Everybody's favourite punch bag, Jamie Smith. On Instagram, I believe Jamie Geraint. He asks, a lot of talk has been about Jamie Smith and his performance, and that it wasn't up to scratch in terms of setting the standard that you'd spoken about, the heartbeat of the side before. As an ex-Test keeper, how do you feel about how he went? Looking back on it now,
Jamie, I played a lot of cricket with in the Beenleigh area, and very good player. And actually, has recently been he represents Australia over 40s, so he's a good, very good, stylish left-hander. The Jamie Smith bit was, and actually, when you look at his keeping, he dropped one catch and didn't go for another. Other than that, I don't recall him missing a lot.
because in the next innings he caught one down the leg side, and that was the very next
and so
he had chance he had.
Yeah, and so that sort of stuff. He wasn't horrific with the gloves. The issue that everyone has is his energy, and as a keeper, and I mentioned this when we had our
you spoke about it before,
our close of play, is that I looked and I just saw someone who, for me, keeper, my job was to be the energy, and it doesn't matter how far I was stood back to Harms and Flintoff, these guys, I had to get up to the stumps. That was my job. That was my job, to be up there, because the fielders are expecting. And the other reason is if you get a run out, the fielders need to have thrown it, and they need to be in a rhythm and of that accuracy. And if they're just lobbing it randomly round to Jamie Smith, who was halfway to the stumps, sometimes, and if they see a keeper that's not putting in the full energy, not leading that buzz, not clapping the hands together, not being vocal, you can very easily drop to those levels. And if you then have a side that is quiet and not engaged with the opposition, because that's the other thing, you, as a keeper, you're engaging with them by getting throws up to the stumps. The batter might be close, and the batter might, have to get out of the way of a throw and stuff like that. So you're actually sort of showing some intent the whole way. And I think that's what was frustrating for me watching his keeping, is it almost lacked intent. He was just behind the stumps. He's very casual, right? But there's so much more to it with the leadership of it.
Do you think that's a technique thing in terms of the fact he doesn't keep on a day-to-day basis? Or do you think, as Ed Burke suggested, that it was a fitness issue and it wasn't just with Jamie Smith, but he suggested that the entire England team didn't look fit? So do you think that's technique or fitness, or a combination of the two?
No, I think it's a personality. So maybe personality might come into a bit, but it's, I think it's just a methodology of his. I think that's, I haven't seen him keep for Surrey, but I expect that he's kept this way his whole time, and it's served him, because he's scored the runs, and that was why he was highlighted, because he wasn't scoring the runs that he should have. And so we started then to look at other things, and with the drop catches and everything like that, you had experts who were watching in and thinking, hang on a minute, they just look low here. Where's the energy? Well, the energy comes from the keeper, and that's something Smith has really got to look at, because I think he is the player that has to go forward playing. He is the guy to choose, because he's batting so good. It's now sitting down with him and potentially having a wicket-keeping coach who can dip in and who can guide him. He's got Alex Stewart at Surrey, even though he doesn't keep for Surrey. I know you're potentially going to say that, but he needs a mentor that he can sidle up to, and that isn't necessarily changing technique and stuff, because it's just like saying, okay, a minute, let's learn from that. What can we introduce? Yes, it's going to be difficult for you because you're a quiet lad who goes about his business, but going forward, you've got to take on that fielding leadership role better than you have.
Staying with fitness, it wasn't just Ed Burke. Other people also suggested that England didn't look fit. Has fitness developed overall in cricket since your day, do you think?
Absolutely. It's a huge part of it. If I I look at what the Kent lads are doing. I'm on their WhatsApp group, and I see their itinerary, and here we are in January, and they're tasked with running a certain distance every week. So they're, then they're in the gym, and it's part of that. And then, so when to read, David Saker, the bowling coach that came in fairly last minute, then when you read snippets of he was appalled by the levels that the England bowlers fitness that they had. Apparently, it hasn't come out, and I haven't been able to find out who the name is. They've kept that fairly quiet. But one of the bowlers arrived. I think it was a bowler. One of the bowlers arrived what they called overweight, and so that sort of level back in the day, even before me, bowlers were renowned for running. Sort of Jeff Thompson, Dennis Lee, guys that I grew up, even the great West Indians, they would run and run and run. That was their fitness. Going into the gym has become part of bowling now for strength as well, but you need that longevity. And so the other thing is, I remember, James Treadwell, who played a lot for Kent, he's captain England, it's my brother-in-law. And I remember when he was in the England setup after me, that there was fines for being over your skin folds, which is basically your fat percentage of your body. And so England at that point, if every mil that you were over your set sort of area that you were meant to be, my understanding was it was £1,000 fine. And so
really?
then,
wow,
so that's what they had, is that there was a distinct sort of level in which that you had to meet. There was no negotiations. There was no, you can don't worry too much. It was no, this is where you're at. This is where you have to maintain, very much like what footballers do. But it seems again that fitness testing is something McCullum got rid of as well. Which for me is it's beyond baffling, because if you don't have tests to hit, it's horrible though. Pre-season, the indoor school at Canterbury, we'd all line up ready for the dreaded beep test. We hated it.
Yeah.
But you knew that it was coming, and you knew that you had to prepare for it, because one, you'd be going against your mates, and so you didn't want to be embarrassed. You'd be part of that team culture of holding up. Before every tour, I would go up to Loughborough. We'd go through a whole myriad of testing, to be prepared, and you had to hit your levels. And so for me, that the fact that they watch reporters, if they don't have to do that, that's something which is scandalous.
So voluntary fitness tests, compulsory going out on the lash in Noosa. No wonder we lost. You were lucky it wasn't 5-0. But that sort of attitude which stems from the top. And you can see why McCullum's under pressure now. Matthew Carnegie suggests Broad and Anderson should be brought in as joint coaches. Scotty Oram suggests that Justin Langer would give England a hard edge. If McCullum does leave, who would you like to see as the England coach?
Good. I don't want just a journeyman coach out there. That's why I did sort of like the way where Rob Key went with Brendon McCullum to start with. In terms of Broad and Anderson, sitting here as a person that wants to get back into cricket coaching full time, down the line, I'm sitting here thinking I need to learn coaching. I need to, yes, I've played a lot, but I need to invest in coaching and learning that part of it. And so for those two, they've done more in the media since playing than coaching. That's my only bit, is that I have no problem with them doing some advisory stuff, and probably with the up and coming. That's where I'd see them as great value.
Like Fred has done.
Earn some coaching stripes. Absolutely, earn some coaching stripes within, franchise cricket, within the Lions potentially. With that next crop coming up, I wouldn't be for them just being gifted this coaching role, because I'd want them to learn more about. Their skills are phenomenal, clearly, and they've got so much to give, but that's the only thing. So in terms of going forward, Justin Langer, I don't know if you watched was it on Amazon, the Australian
Prime,
behind the scene series?
Yeah.
He went too far the other way. He made the players uncomfortable, with the intensity that he brought. So there's that side of it. There's a lot of call out there. It's time, for Alex Stewart, isn't there? Quite a calm character. He's got proven success at Surrey, and so I wouldn't necessarily be against. Yeah, and he's clearly done some things right at Surrey. He's played a long time, but he's now been on the other side, and he's learned what it takes to put sides together, what it means to get a culture together. And that was the other thing with McCullum. McCullum was very left field. He hasn't got a long coaching pedigree behind him, and we're now sort of, in a way, we're seeing that. You know, he had initial success early on, but when it gets tough, and when it pressure's on, that's when you draw on all your experience of how you bring things together. So it's, I don't just want a journeyman, someone who's been round the countries and done all that. I do want someone who, if they do change, has got some freshness to it, but has got some real pedigree with their coaching to come in and bring things into line as it seems it needs to happen.
But if you are a Jimmy Anderson or a Stuart Broad, for example, an Alistair Cook, you're going to sit there and you go, right, I could earn millions in the media and I can just have an opinion and it's an easy life, or I can put myself out there and potentially tarnish my playing legacy by becoming a coach. And you have to question why they would bother.
Yeah, and it was, when's the millions in the media? That'd be nice, mate. When's that flowing in?
Sorry, I'm working on it, mate. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, and it's interesting that I think Stuart Broad is excellent in what he does. He shows incredible insight and knowledge. And so he trained himself. I remember hearing that the back end of his cricket career, he was investing himself to move into the media because he realised that I can't just, yes, I'm a great player and I will get opportunities that other players probably won't get. But when I get there, I want to do it right. So he invested heavily in himself with media training, and it's showing. And that's what I was getting across the point with your coach. If you're making changes, is you want someone that is in that position to do it. But it's interesting that Alistair Cook, his ears have pricked up. I think it was Michael Atherton that wrote that Alistair Cook should be involved. He went through a long period of time. He's seen multiple coaches. He's seen multiple methods. And so he could probably, to a level, bring that into it. I don't think he should be the top man, but he may well have a role within it. But you're right. He's a family man. He's got his farm, and these guys are on the road a heck of a lot. So it's that balance now, isn't it? I think we'll keep who we've got. I think we'll, it'll take a lot of negotiating, but I have a feeling that we'll keep who we have for a little bit longer.
When you were talking about the kids that you coach at school, you mentioned something about the fact that they just love, there's no defensive. They just love to hit pretty fours and stuff all the time. And if they got out after hitting a pretty four, that was okay. And clearly it wasn't for you. Tony Bradshaw, who runs a club in southwest London, had written in at that time. And he said, and I don't know if he still is, but he was at his wit's end at that particular point with the way the kids play now. And Compo said afterwards that technique is not in vogue anymore. So the way that England have played and the way that McCullum and Stokes have asked them to play, do you think, on the final point about McCullum, without labouring the point too much, trying to move on to other things, do you think McCullum's legacy will come at a heavy price for the future of English cricket?
No, I don't. I think because it's been shown up that the way that he's sort of no consequence, but it's come across wrongly and that's, I think, where his frustration is, that what he's tried to instill has come across wrongly. And because of a few methods of dismissal and stuff, he's ultimately, he wanted to put pressure back onto the bowlers. And that's what he's trying to get across. So often when I hear in interviews recently, and that's what I mean, is a good method of thinking. How, because you can't just sit there and be a sitting duck and and just do nothing. So he's wanted them to do something. The issue is their something has been so badly ill judged, and so that's what I mean. I think there's a happy medium between it. So I don't think there's going to be loads of kids who are now saying it doesn't matter, Bazball, that's the way I play. I actually think there's enough good coaches out there, and there's people going to sort of say, well, yeah, you need to take some attack. You need clear thinking. That's what's happening. What's the bowler trying to do to you? Right. Okay. The conditions are in the bowler's favour. How can you flip it a bit to be, as a batter, how can you turn it slightly towards you? What methodology, what ability do you have? What can you do? Okay, put that into play. You won't see, we're not going to see a load of kids just running down and Harry Brooking it.
Yeah.
I'm really confident of that.
Vincent Gardner from Basingstoke, who was a stylish right-hander who could never hit the ball off the square. I can say that because he's one of my mates. He asked whether us Brits are deluded. Actually, most Australians on Instagram think I'm deluded after that. After that post about Jamie Smith, Steve Smith, and Travis Head that went viral. 43,000 views, that thing got, and about 43,000 bits of abuse as well, which was quite amusing. Vinny asks how two injury-prone quicks and a bunch of average seamers can win in Oz. He thinks we failed in all three disciplines of batting, bowling and fielding. But going back to you said about the future and kids, actually the biggest winner, I think, of this Ashes is county cricket. Because I think the emphasis can be now put back on county cricket to produce those players who can play that long format of the game, and therefore they now know they've got probably the best chance they're ever going to have in their sort of short careers of representing their country. And one of those guys, according to David Todd from Canberra, is Asa Tribe. And what are our thoughts on him? KP's mentioned him a lot on social media recently. He's playing down at the Par Royals. I thought I'd have a quick look at him at the weekend, turned it on, and he smudged one down the leg side, got caught for not very many, so it wasn't a good start. But looks like he's got fantastic technique and temperament. I obviously looked at his stats. 1,000 first-class runs last year, average at 44s. Got a double 100 for Glamorgan, 350s and 300s and 550s. There are lots of players like that who are churning out runs. We mentioned a few for Hamid, Sibley in county cricket, and this is their chance.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of guys there in Hamid and Sibley who have had an opportunity. Hamid was given an opportunity way too early, and it was too early for him, and he was
very low hands.
He's learned from it, and he's gone away. Yeah, but he is now one of the best next players, and so he potentially is one who, if they're thinking about changing that opening at top, if they're thinking about that Crawley needs to go into county cricket for a while. Asa Tribe I think he's from Jersey, and so I spoke to Mark Wallace when I was down at Cardiff for one of the women's matches, and and I think it was not long after Asa had just done something ridiculous in the T20, and the one thing that Mark said is he's full of confidence in himself. He's a big strapping lad. He's strong. He's confident in his own ability. Yeah, he's a good looking lad as well, isn't he? And so but the one thing is he's got confidence in what he's doing. And so that's a big plus for me, is someone who has that self-confidence and with the right guy. And he was one of the few guys to score 100, in the winter. He got 100 for the Lions. And what I like is he's doing it in all formats, because historically England have given people opportunities in short form, and he's out in South Africa, and that's where KP's seen so much of him, because he's done some pretty good things out there in South Africa, and so KP's got eyes on him. That's a big advantage for Asa, the fact you got someone like Kev tweeting and talking about him, so that will get him a jump up the ladder anyway. But the fact he's playing for the Lions, he's under strong consideration. But the thing which will be just nagging at me a little bit is repeating. So he's come in, he's had a breakthrough year this year for Glamorgan. Coming into this summer, bowlers will look at him, they'll form some plans, and so they always say that your second and third year is that one. So it's whether they look at him and go, he's got everything, we play him now, or we want to see it again in county cricket. And the danger, of course, is he doesn't produce again, and he sort of goes into a bit of a slump, and that sends him down the pecking order. So that's where the England selection sort of dilemmas come in. It's like, do we just keep promoting this lad? Do we think he's ready? Or do we need to see more? But the danger is, if we ask to see more, he doesn't produce, and so we then go looking elsewhere. But he looks a talent, and the fact he scores big runs in all forms for me is a massive plus.
Yeah, but that's a good thing, isn't it? If someone is being tested at county cricket, and not just 1 year, over multiple years, and then they really hone their craft, and the step up to international level at Test cricket isn't as great as if they've just played half a season or some T20s and get pushed up. Jacob Bethel's going to come under a bit of pressure. There's already Nick Muldrew asked whether Bethel was a future England captain. Are we guilty of putting too much pressure on these young people, like we have done with Harry Brook? I mean, Bethel has been given a white tour captaincy to Ireland. Brook is the one-day captain currently. If he gets punched by another bouncer, I suspect that he won't be that anymore. But are we putting too much pressure on these kids too early?
Yeah, I think we're doing it more than we ever have done in the past. And it also it probably comes around because the number of other options aren't quite there. What they the pickings to lead are probably a bit limited, and that's why and so that's where they've been given their promotion. So Bethel's got an incredible reputation. They've shown the clips of him playing, and then Brian Lara commenting. Joe Root said when he was out there on a West Indies tour, and he and Joe Root's dad and Jacob Bethel's dad are good friends, and Joe Root went round to the house, and he saw this 10-year-old watching Grand Designs, and just someone who was mature beyond his years. So we've got excited about him, that is for sure. Now just let him play for a bit. I don't mind. He's been given the captaincy of the white ball stuff on that tour, whether or not it'll carry on. But yeah, I do want Jacob Bethel just to be given some time to bed in, and become a solid player, without any of that extra burden. Because if he's going to bat 3 for England, that's a hard enough job as an early 20-year-old.
Just sort of moving.
Brook, I can understand Brooks.
Yeah, just to county cricket via Australia. Mark Schwarzkopf suggests that it's harder to get out of the Australian side to get in, and he's referring back to days when people like David Hooks, Darren Lehman, Jamie Siddons, Brad Hodge, our mate Stewie Law dominated Shield cricket for years and only played test matches in their twilight. Stewie just played one test. And he said, and Mark is Australian, he suggests that there's a bias towards New South Wales and to a lesser extent Victoria. And somebody called Shadow Scarab says the same sort of thing, that says their bowlers have carried them for years. I had a quick look. Historically, New South Wales have produced 40% of all of Australia's test cricketers, Victoria 23%, and then 37% the rest of the states. So two-part question. Do you think there is a bias towards New South Wales from your time back in Australia? And then in England there also, is there a bias in county cricket, do you think, towards Surrey, Lancashire and Yorkshire, for example?
The Aussies have always talked about, you play for New South Wales, play for Australia. That's been something that's been kicking around for a long time. And when I was growing up, it was there. But from what I understand is the reason it is club cricket and first grade cricket in Sydney, the standard is ridiculously high.
I had a net in Sydney once,
and so if you make it through that, and that was probably against the sixth or something like that, wasn't it? It was some bloke walking his dog coming out of bowl, and
exactly.
But so first grade cricket in Sydney. You've got to think. Adam Gilchrist had to leave New South Wales to go to Perth to get an opportunity.
Usman Khawaja going to Queensland.
I played a lot of first grade cricket in Brisbane, and it still is a good standard. And the Shield guys who came back, but they were a step above the Shield guys again. And so, but Sydney is, my understanding, it's by far and away the strongest grade competition in Australia. So you produce in Sydney, you play for New South Wales. It's unsurprising you have a great chance of playing for Australia. And over here, it's becoming more so that people think that the perception is you need to play for a test ground, not. I know you mentioned Surrey, and but more so, you need to play in Division 1, and you need to play at a test ground for you to be looked at. And so, for the lads at Kent, they finished bottom of Division 2. So for one of those players, Zach Crawley's an outlier. Someone's going to say to me, "You muppet, Zach Crawley plays for Kent," but
that was going to be me.
But he showed. But that was before Kent had this. Yeah, that was before Kent had this massive decline. So I think it's getting more so because the Surrey obviously have got the money power to build a strong side. And so when you go into a winning team and you're performing, you're going to get looked at in Division 1. And so it's been the chat for a while actually, but I think more and more so that Division 1 and test playing counties are where they tend to look at first for strength.
So on technology, we talked about Snicko and stuff when Jake Weatherall was not given out in the last test and Jamie Smith in, I think, the first test. Alan Plaskett messages. Now, Alan Plaskett came up with Snicko in 1998. Now, he's at pains to say that he's had no operational involvement with it for a while now, but he says the problem with it in this Ashes series is that the sound from the stump mics has been full of digital overload. You can't do Snicko without clean sound. Without you and I discussing the ins and outs of something we know absolutely zero about, Ashley Mason suggests that the ICC needs to make every country use one system, and that currently the best seems to be Ultra Edge. And also he says that we support you stop whining about decisions as nothing's perfect, blah blah. Have you ever used Ultra Edge? Was that around when you played? Or you were a hotspot?
No, I think I was. Yeah. And no, so that side of it wasn't really there. I don't even know if that sort of technology. I think hotspot and everything came in potentially even after my time. Yeah. So, but Ben Stokes spoke about that, didn't he? At his end of series, and the frustration with it, that he very clearly says, let's just use one system.
Yeah.
And all the players will want is one system that works. Even the umpires who have to sit there and we joked in our sort of mid-match podcast that it was Homer Simpson who was there pressing the, I can take the flak from that. I said it was just, Homer Simpson was there pressing the wrong button and going, dolt. But so that's the thing. Just give us one system that works and is sort of foolproof and is simple to use. So that all that stuff of digital overload, and that's baffled me how that comes into it. But everyone just wants something that works.
If you have more technological nous than Jonesy and I have, which really, that's anyone over the age of 5, I would have thought. Send us a message on the comments on this and let us know what the hell digital overload is. I really should have looked it up so I could ask you a more sensible question. But luckily, Ashley Mason and his Ultra Edge point saved the day there. So right, that's the Ashes done. There's other cricket around. We're going to sort of do a weekly show recorded on a Monday, release on a Wednesday around what else is happening. What you will have noticed is that you haven't had a quiz or a true or false in this particular episode. And that will stay all the way through it, because I haven't thought of a question. But there were other episodes that we did. I spoke with Damien Brandy around the West Indies. I think you might have been teaching at that particular time. And the question sort of I asked was whether cricket needs the West Indies anymore. Obviously it used to back in the day. Nicholas de Valentine, de Valentine, great name if that's his real name, says it would be sad, but cricket would survive without the West Indies. And Bentley Cruz says, I'll never watch Test cricket without the Windies. Where do you sit on that? And would it be an absolute shame if the West Indies failed to exist going forward, or is that just a sign of the times and they've just sealed their own fate with the way they've treated the game over the last few years?
There's no doubt it'd be hugely sad, that if the West Indies weren't a part of international cricket, because it's a part of the West Indies, it's a part of their history, it's a part of their tradition. I've got, as a young lad from Barbados at my school that I'm coaching all the time, and he is cricket mad, and he's and from what I know from going out, cricket is all over the island, and it's still a big part of what they do, but there is a lot for their administration to answer to, and cricket will go on. That is the sad thing as well. How often do they come for a test series? And the amount, how many tests do they play? They've gone big into their Caribbean Premier League, and so if you think of the world leaders of cricket, as for England, India, Australia, they're the ones that sort of dominate the decisions, and that I think they will all rally around to try and help West Indies. But ultimately, if there isn't a West Indies team in international cricket, especially at Test cricket, I think they definitely hold a place at with the white ball formats. But if the West Indies aren't around in Test cricket will still go on to and it will still carry on, definitely.
At Hoggard 2005, who I suspect isn't Matthew Hoggard,
No.
suggests that instead of the smokescreen of a review, the ECB, although smokescreen, it could be Hoggy with his barbecue stuff, the ECB should be held accountable for the millions received from their broadcast and commercial rights that they've spent on salaries and pensions, and not on the expansion of the game in the lower socio-economic areas / northern environments and comprehensive schools. It's still an elitist game, which links back to your point about the West Indies not coming over as much because they don't bring in the revenues that that India and Australia would do. But do you agree with that? Do you think the ECB have mismanaged the game? If you look at it from your county perspective, I know the ECB distributes about 30% of the monies they get to the counties, but is that enough to sustain the game at that level?
If I look at what's being put out to young players now, is probably the most, it's in its healthiest state that I've seen. There's a program called the KRDP, which is the Kent Regional Development Program, and so there are now lots of levels. There was over 1,000 boys that trialled for the Kent age groups, and so if you didn't make it into that, you then went into your into this regional program, and you also in that side of it, that's what the money's being used for, is to facilitate these programs. I suppose the angle that the question is towards is the more deprived areas, which that's something I don't know about, which is what Freddie with his program has tried to. Yeah. So he's tried to highlight that, and he's trying to make a difference there. So I think what happened, I suppose it needs to be at the doorstep of individual counties, and knowing their demographic and using the money that the ECB gives them, because the ECB do dish out a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. They dish out a heck of a lot of money. It's then how each individual county sort of looks at what's needed and then should be putting on programs there. So I would sort of lean towards the counties and looking at what are they doing. That's something that the ECB in each county needs to be making sure that they're using the money very wisely, and that needs to be that, and that will be being monitored and stuff like that. So I think they are trying. But my feeling is, from seeing students at school, and yes, I know I'm in an independent school, but I do see different kids in different age groups, and the desire for cricket is waning. That's probably the big issue.
Right.
There's a lot of clubs in trouble. My own club, Village Club at Ash, we've gone from two thriving teams down to one. And I hear of a lot of other local clubs, and so that's it. The desire to be out and play cricket for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, both days of the weekend, has well and truly gone.
Yeah,
and that's more. Yeah. That's why the 100 came into it. Between the ECB and Sky, is my understanding, that's who came up with 100, trying to get energy back into it. Yeah. So they are trying, but they're also up against society, which is looking at cricket and moving away from it, which is a real shame. If you have your family involved in cricket, you're more likely to play cricket. That's what I'm seeing. If your family, of which more and more aren't involved in cricket, you're not going to bring them into the game.
No, I think that's true. Just on that point about elitism, I looked at the ESPN Cricinfo did a report in 2021. At that time, 58% of the England men's team were from private/public school. And I don't know whether the lines of jurisdiction are drawn, but I know next year the MCC Foundation have got the Barclays Knight Stokes Trophy, or Knight Stokes Trophy, which is for state schools to participate in, and there are like 1,000 schools signed up. So hopefully, in some way, shape, or form, that balance is being redressed towards towards more kids from state schools participating in the game. Couple more questions before we close up, mate. Kamala, our friend again.
Just to add, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Just to add about the state school stuff, you've also within the state sector, you've got a shift of mentality of the teachers to do all those extra hours.
Yeah.
You know, I try and get fixtures, and because those teachers are being pulled from pillar to post, they don't have the resources. You know, if I think of quite a number of the local schools here, they don't have a minibus to take them to fixtures. You know, and they might even have a fixture in mind, but then the teacher will get pulled off that fixture, and they might be the only one taken, and they get told, no, you can't do that because you need to go cover geography lesson because that teacher's not in today. And so that's the other dynamic that's happening, is that less and less teachers are working the hours. If I think my father-in-law was a PE teacher, my dad taught PE, the hours that they put in beyond 3 p.m. were huge and made such a difference to young people's lives. And that's what got people enthused about sport. They were the ones that were willing to be out there till 6:30, 7 o'clock taking the school team. That dynamic has also changed hugely in the modern teaching world.
I think we should end there. There are a couple more questions, but I think that's such a good place to end this podcast, this Q&A episode. Jonesy, we'll leave it there. Thanks again for your time, and I will speak to you next week when we start our weekly show, which is going to take the same format, I think, of the Ashes show, you'll be pleased to know. So we're going to do section on world cricket, whatever's going on, whatever we see. We'll have some guests. And then we're going to have a quiz section, which is your favourite part, obviously. In fact,
we'll have some guesses. Not only are we going to have some guests on, we're going to have some guesses as well.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I got a question that says, why is Geraint so bad at quizzes? Sanjay's questions are great. And that's from a list. It's from my wife. We won't worry about that.
I was going to say, yeah.
So we'll have that. And then we're going to bring the return of Cop That. We're going to talk. We're going to get angry about something and see who else we can annoy. So that's all to look forward to, mate. We'll keep doing that over the rest of this year. You'll be pleased to know. And I will speak to you then. Have a good rest of the week.
Cheers, mate. Will do. And you.
Right.
Cheap Crikey, you're close. It comes through my screen.
It's very funny, even though I say so myself. Any given Saturday. It's basically PG Woodhouse meets Vicar of Dibley on a cricket pitch. And it's highbrow humour, mate. It's the ball lands in a vat of cheese, and then there's a betting scandal, right? So that's as good as it gets. But it made me laugh when I was writing it.
And I can just imagine you with your silly voices, all your silly voices, you're chuckling away and you're writing it.
100%.
Is just
100%, mate. I was laughing me rockings off. We said at the beginning that someone was going to win it. Who is that someone?
Mr. Bradshaw from Southwest London. Yeah, big tone, because his question was a very important one for the future of cricket, and something that's close to my heart with coaching a lot of youngsters. So Big Tone can have that one.
Big Tone wins it. Tony, if you want to just drop us a comment, I will tell you how to get hold of me directly, and I will get this book signed by me, and I'll see if I can get Jonesy to sign it as well. It might take a bit longer. Obviously, mine's much more important, given the fact that I wrote it and Jonesy hasn't even read it. But yeah, we see if we can both sign it and get one off to you. So good question. Thanks to everybody who did send us a question here on Close of Play. Thank you for all of your support for the work that we do here at Close of Play. But to help us, if you could subscribe to Close of Play on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also at Sanjay Murthy Cricket on YouTube, it'll help us. We can get more content out there, get more guests, and keep bringing you our, let's hope, unique views on the game that we all love. Thank you very much.